Her hand shook as she lifted the napkin from the plate, glancing over her shoulder. The dining room was empty, or so she thought. The smell of steak filled the air, tempting and heavy. Just one bite, she told herself. No one would notice. But before she could move, a voice cut through the silence. "What do you think you're doing?" She froze. The man stepped out from the shadows, eyes sharp, expression unreadable. She didn't know it yet, but this wasn't just any man. This was the owner himself, watching everything, and what he did next would leave her in tears. Welcome, story lovers. From where are you watching? Hit the like button and drop your city name in the comments so we can see how far our story travels. It was close to midnight, and the restaurant had fallen into that soft, echoing quiet that only comes after the last customer leaves. The clinking of silverware had faded, the laughter replaced by the hum of the refrigerator in the back. For most, it was just another Thursday night. But for Daniel Cross, the owner of the Amber Table, it was an opportunity. Daniel had built the restaurant from the ground up, a polished, upscale bistro in the heart of the city, where every detail gleamed. He was proud of his success, proud of the reputation he had crafted for excellence and class. Yet behind that pride was a growing restlessness. Lately, complaints had surfaced about morale, about management, about how certain staff members felt treated differently. Daniel brushed them off as exaggerations. He believed in merit, not emotion, numbers, not feelings. But when a trusted friend hinted that not all was well among his employees, something inside him stirred. For the first time, Daniel decided to see things for himself, quietly, secretly. So, he did what no one expected. He went undercover, dressed in plain clothes. With his hair tucked under a cap, he took a late-night shift pretending to be a temp cleaner. The staff didn't recognize him. To them, he was just another worker finishing up the tables and wiping down the counters. He wanted to see the truth, how they worked when no one was watching. That's when he first noticed her, a young black waitress named Amara. Graceful, quiet, always the last to leave. She moved with a tired elegance, collecting plates long after others had gone. Something about her posture, humble, heavy, caught Daniel's eye. He didn't know her story, not yet. But as he watched her pack away leftovers instead of throwing them out, he felt a faint tug of curiosity, then pity, then unease. He didn't realize it yet, but that simple act, barely a moment, would shatter the wall between privilege and pain. Something was about to change forever. The next evening, Daniel returned before closing time, still undercover, still pretending to be just another worker wiping tables in the shadows. He told himself it was all part of the experiment, but deep down there was something else, a pull he couldn't name. That image of Amara quietly packing leftovers had stayed with him all night, not as charity but survival. There had been no greed in her eyes, only hunger and shame fighting for space in her trembling hands. Throughout the shift, he observed her. She arrived early, head down, uniform neatly pressed but faded from too many washes. She spoke softly to customers, her voice polite even when they ignored her presence. When other waiters laughed in the back, Amara stayed on the floor, picking up crumbs, refilling glasses, moving with invisible purpose. Daniel noticed the small things, the way the hostess barely acknowledged her, the cook's impatient tone when she placed an order, the subtle roll of eyes from her manager when she asked for extra time to clean. It wasn't loud, it wasn't violent, but it was there, the quiet hierarchy of value. By midnight, the lights dimmed again. The restaurant emptied out. One by one, the staff clocked out, chatting about weekend plans and late-night shows. Amara stayed behind. Daniel pretended to finish mopping as she gathered the half-eaten plates from a table of wealthy diners who hadn't even said goodbye. She stared at the untouched bread, then at the steak still glistening under the dim light. Her hand hesitated. A soft sigh escaped her lips, the kind that came from profound exhaustion, not hunger. Then, carefully, she took a small portion, wrapped it in a napkin, and slipped it into her bag. Daniel froze. He wanted to step forward, to ask why. But another voice rose inside him, the owner's voice. Rules are rules. That's theft. No excuses. His thoughts clashed. Business versus humanity. Pride versus empathy. He had made policies forbidding staff from taking food home, believing it kept things professional. Now, watching her, that rule felt colder than the tile beneath his shoes. The next moment, the manager, Steve, walked in unexpectedly. His tone was sharp, his smirk cruel. "Amara," he said, "what's that in your bag?" Her face drained of color. It's nothing, sir. Just some leftovers." Steve snatched the bag, unwrapping the napkin like a prosecutor revealing evidence. "Company policy. You know this. We don't feed freeloaders. The word hung in the air like poison. Daniel's grip tightened on the mop. He wanted to stop it, to speak up, to tell Steve to show some compassion. But his disguise pinned him to silence. He watched as Amara lowered her gaze, whispering apologies that made his chest ache. Steve didn't stop there. He mocked her loud enough for the kitchen staff to hear. "If you can't afford dinner, maybe you're in the wrong job." The laughter that followed was short but cruel. Amara didn't defend herself. She simply took the humiliation, nodded, and said she understood. When Steve left, she quietly sat on a stool in the corner, her shoulders trembling, not from anger, but from defeat. Daniel stayed in the shadows, torn between guilt and awakening. He had built this place. These were his employees, his rules, his culture. And now, for the first time, he saw what it looked like when success had no soul. As he left that night, the sound of her soft sobs echoed in his mind. They weren't loud, but they followed him all the way to his car, more deafening than any applause he'd ever received. He realized the truth he'd avoided for years. His empire had grown, but his humanity had shrunk, and tomorrow night, he would make a choice that would change everything. The following night, Daniel came early. But this time, he didn't come to observe. He came to confront the truth. He sat in the corner, still in disguise, watching Amara move through her shift with quiet precision. Her eyes were dull now, her smile practiced. She wasn't just tired, she was broken. When the restaurant emptied, she began her usual cleanup. The same half-eaten meals, the same silence. But before she could pack anything away, Steve appeared again, clipboard in hand, arrogance dripping from every word. "You're not pulling that stunt again, are you?" he sneered. "Management's already watching you." Amara froze, clutching her apron. "Sir, I wasn't—" But he grabbed the bag from her hands, spilling its contents onto the floor. Cold bread, a few scraps of pasta, nothing more. "Disgusting," he spat. "People like you are always looking for handouts." Those words struck Daniel like a blow. "People like you," something inside him snapped. He stepped forward, tearing off his cap. "Enough!" His voice cut through the room like thunder. Everyone turned. The disguise fell away, and the truth stood exposed. Steve's face drained of color. "Mr. Cross?" Daniel looked at Amara, then back at his manager. "This woman isn't stealing, she's surviving. And you? You've forgotten what it means to be human." The silence that followed was heavy, almost sacred. Amara stood frozen, tears pooling in her eyes, not from fear, but disbelief, because for the first time someone had finally seen her. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments. The next morning, the amber table felt different. The same golden sunlight filtered through the windows, but something unseen had shifted. Word had spread about the owner who came undercover, about what he'd witnessed, and about the waitress who had quietly endured more than anyone knew. Daniel called a meeting before opening hours. No managers, no ranks, just people. For the first time, he didn't speak as the man in charge, but as someone humbled. He told them what he saw, how blind he had been to the struggles within his own walls. He looked at Amara, voice steady but heavy with regret. "We've built a restaurant with fine food," he said softly, "but forgot to feed our own humanity." Then, in front of everyone, he announced a new policy. Any leftover food would go to staff or be donated nightly. Raises were issued for those who were underpaid, and Steve, the manager who mocked compassion, was gone by noon. Amara stood quietly at the back, unsure what to feel. When Daniel approached her later, she whispered, I wasn't trying to steal. I just didn't want to go hungry again. He nodded. I know, and I'm sorry it took me this long to understand. That night, Amara ate her dinner at the staff table, not in hiding, but in peace. The restaurant thrived again, but in a new way, built on empathy, not ego. Because sometimes, the most significant transformation begins not with power, but with seeing someone you once overlooked. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more powerful stories that awaken hearts.